Phil, welcome to the show. You train some of the best in the world, some of the best athletes, UFC fighters, boxers, NFL athletes, but we're not going to skip over the fact that you're one of the best as well. You know, your mindset is something that I rarely see. Absolutely amazing, super consistent. You're somebody that a lot of people look up to. I wanted to ask you, throughout all of your experiences, is there anything that still makes your mind crack under pressure?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say, I wouldn't say crack under pressure. There's certain circumstances and situations that you go through in life, and you're going to go through this time and time again that makes you really reflect on who you are and give you some true introspection on what exactly are you here for and why are you doing what you do. And so every time I get to that level or I get to that point, it gives me an understanding of how much I'm willing to push past discomfort, whether it be physical, psychological, it doesn't matter. And in time, when you get older and you have people that rely upon you, it's not just about you. So in that moment, you have no other choice but to keep pushing forward. And I think a lot of people have that issue because maybe they don't have much to live for, or maybe they feel like they don't have much to live for. They lack purpose, or they lack the understanding of purpose. So when I think about, difficult situations that come up on a daily basis at this point, especially nowadays where life is hectic, you know, it really shows you who you are throughout this process. And I always say this, man, it's like if I'm going to sharpen the sword, I have to create friction. And so, which with each and every problem that comes my way, I get wiser, I become tougher, I become stronger mentally and physically, because without that pain of the situation, you can never adapt and gain that strength. So that's one things I would say. I wouldn't say that it ever really stops me or stifles me. It just keeps me thinking, you know.
Sure, I love that so much. And I know you were talking about, situations that happen on a daily basis, but I would say as far as something that was a big thing for you, like something that might have stopped you, you said nothing's gonna stop you in your tracks, but something that really made you, look back upon all your things. Is there a certain example or a certain situation that you can remember when that happened?
Oh, plenty. The biggest one would be, well, there's two. One was when I was very young. I was 16 years old, and some people know this, some people don't. And I've talked about this on podcasts before. But I got into some trouble, right? And I ended up facing a lot of time because I was doing all the wrong things. I was living two different lives, right? I was playing football, trying to make it to the next level, but also doing bad things, selling drugs, getting into fights, doing all types of stuff that I shouldn't be doing at that time. And when I got arrested and I got locked up, I'm sitting in a cell and I'm having that reflection moment, right? I'm looking at my life and I'm saying, this isn't for me. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. This isn't where I'm supposed to be at all. And so again, reflection came and you have to have an understanding of you have a decision, right? You need to cut off certain things. And that's really what decision means. In Latin, it means to cut off. And so I decided to cut off that world, to cut off that lifestyle. And from then on, I haven't gotten to any trouble. Obviously, I work with a lot of the sheriff's office and law enforcement nowadays, which is kind of a full circle moment for me, because there was a time where I was afraid of those guys, right? Now they're my friends. I work with them and I hold them in high regard. The second one is very near and dear, and it's very tragic, but I lost both my parents in 2 months apart. My father died of an esophageal bleed very dramatically, traumatically. And then my mother died 2 months later. She developed lupus. Things went wrong. Obviously, she didn't take care of herself too much and ended up passing away as well. Now I was around 26 years old, 27 years old. So I was a grown man, but my parents were very young when they died. And I had still plans for them, right? I was building my career, so I was going to help them out. But that's a problem, and you go, well, this could really stop someone from pursuing their passion. This could stop someone from going that route that they were going because they feel bad or they feel like the whole world is crashing down, and it's going to be there. And I figured that I have a responsibility to myself, to them, and to the people that put their trust in me to carry along and lead them to in the right direction. So with that, I would say those are the two pivotal moments in my life that I knew it was a make or break moment for me.
Sure. Phil, I love that so much. I appreciate you sharing that. I know, can't imagine how personal that is to you. So I respect it so much. Do you think that your coaching philosophies, like the ways that you live, reflect who you want to be, like as far as bettering as a person, bettering, like you said, for your parents, for your family, and for all your friends?
As a coach, as a teacher, educator, leader, you have to set the standard, right? And I always look at it as if would I be somebody that I would want to follow? And so I live my days each and every moment like that. Never tell any of my guys to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do. So with that being said, I want to make sure that I live up to the expectations and the standards that I put on myself. And you know, if that's me having to get up early, if that's me having to stay up late, to study extra, whatever I have to do, even when I don't want to do it, because it's a part of the routine. It's the standard that I set for myself, and you never negotiate with yourself. I know Kobe said that. So shout out to Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace.
Yes, I love that so much. Setting the example, that's absolutely amazing. And I think that a lot of, I mean, coaches, business owners, teachers, like they will teach something that they don't necessarily preach, like they don't set the example. So I have so much respect for you in that aspect. How important is, because you're talking about discipline, all of these things you're doing every day just to make sure that, your clients, the people that you're training are getting better. How important is your mindset when it comes to training other people and getting ready for that?
That's a good question. I would say, you never take any of your situations, your issues, your problems that you're having into your working environment. The same goes for when I come home. I don't want to take what I had to deal with in the workspace and bring it to my family. So whatever you're dealing with, you have to deal with it because nobody's going to help. You can ask for help, you can ask for guidance, 100%. But at the end of the day, you have to make the decision and you have to execute on your decision. So, yeah, I would have to say that it never really stopped me from being the best that I could be, and helping those and guiding those that are needed, even when I didn't feel like doing it, even when I felt sick, tired, lethargic, fed up with certain situations, going through personal problems, maybe health issues too, as well, at some point in time. But I kept moving. I kept doing what I had to do. And true story, after and I'm not saying I'm proud of this, but it had to be done. I had Dustin Poirier, I had Joanna Jedrzejczyk, I had Edson Barbosa, and Junior Dos Santos all in fight camp when my parents died. I literally went to their funeral and then went to train my guys because I had to make the switch. Right now, there was a time when I had to mourn for sure, but it was on my time. It wasn't on their time. And you have to understand that as a leader, as a coach, as a teacher, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. When it comes to, UFC fighters, the athletes that you train, how do you handle the emotional chaos that comes with training somebody in a sport that is very, vicious, but vicious in a way that it's unforgiving? Not vicious like you're fighting or getting bloody, but like it's the sport, breaks them. How do
Yeah.
you navigate that?
You have to look at the person first and foremost. The good thing is that I was in their shoes at one point in time. I didn't make it to the UFC level, but I understand how to compete. I know how it feels to have to get ready for a battle. And throughout that process, it's a year-long process. You know, you're fighting multiple times, you're competing multiple times, but you have about an 8-week time frame to truly get ready and prepared for a fight. And throughout that 8 weeks, you're not only training your body physically, but also mentally, psychologically, and also spiritually. So you have to be almost bulletproof to the sense of this may not go your way, but as long as you put together a plan of action, you have a systematic strategy, and you execute on that plan each and every day, and you do your best with high intent, then no matter what happens inside the fight, you knew that you put everything you could into the preparation. And you can't take that from anyone, right? There's going to be times, listen, fight game is unforgiving, right? You can get knocked out in 2 seconds and have a 12-week camp and everything was going great at a great weight cut, but you get caught and these things happen. We saw it with Max Holloway, or not with Max, with Topuria. And Topuria did his thing. And I think that it was one of those things where it's like, it's his time. And you have to be okay with that. It's a sport first and foremost. Now, if this was life or death, then it's a different situation. But when it comes down to sport, you have to remember and remind yourself that it is a sport. You're going to have winners and losers. And, you know, I've had fighters that have big fights, like life-changing fights to set themselves up for, you know, success and financial freedom for the rest of their lives. And some go our way, some don't. But the biggest thing is finding out what their true why is, because when times get rough and you don't feel like doing it, you have to fall back to it. And for the most part, it has to be very deep. It can't be superficial. You know, when and I always say this because DP has been one of like instrumental in my career. Eddie has his last fight coming up. But when he fought Habib, we knew that it was a arduous task ahead of us, right? Habib's arguably one of the best fighters in the world in history, right? Other than John Jones and a few others. But we knew if we put together a strategy and we went and did our best, you can't take that from us. And at the end of the day, if you get in there and you just got bested because that individual was just better at what they do at that particular time, well, then so, right? But you can never take away the fact that we've consciously and continuously tried to grow and evolve throughout this process. You learn from your losses. Everybody knows that at this point, right? It's a big cliche word or term, but I do truly believe that you learn from things that you need to get better at because it identifies the weak links, right? It showcases where the limiters are. And so we take that and we evolve from it. You know, you get better through practice. And that's one of those things that people have to understand, not just in fighting, but in life in general.
100%. Yeah. I train MMA as well. I've had 2 fights, so I resonate with a couple of things you're saying. Definitely not on the UFC level, but you know, it is a whole nother experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. You know, it's everything from the highest to the lows. I wouldn't ask for anything different. You were on the Inside the Inspired podcast, and you said, I'm going to quote you here because I thought this was amazing. When we train, the goal is to get the stimulus needed for an adaptation that we're trying to obtain to be a better whoever. Essentially, this is anti-fragility. You're kind of talking about this earlier, the whole idea that, you know, growing stronger under immense pressure and pain, all this stuff. So in this sentence, when you say stimulus, I think of, you know, pushing yourself to the limit. And when you enter these states of adaptations, you're pushing yourself, right? Because the stimulus is high. And in turn, you're building proof within yourself. That's how I define confidence. You know, you can show up to the gym. I can train with you, Phil, every single day, but if I only give 10%, I'm gonna know it. It doesn't matter. I'm still paying you. You know what I mean? But if you're pushing yourself every single day to the limit, you know it. That's where your confidence comes from. My question to you, and in this case, when I say stimulus, I'm talking about pushing yourself to the limit, is the constant pursuit of this stimulus the differentiating factor between cracking under pressure?
Hmm. That's a good one. I would have to say that without understanding of the actual stimulus, without understanding what the intent needs to be at, you won't have confidence in whatever you do. So, yes, at that point in time, if you look back and you say, well, I didn't really give it my all. I didn't really get those adaptations that I was trying to obtain or acquire because the intent wasn't there. So I do truly believe that confidence is built in the gym, in the trenches, day by day. And with that, you become more capable of winning. No matter if it says it on the scorecards or whatever it is, you won in the process. And so nobody, like I said, nobody can take that from you because it is you versus you in that certain situation.
Sure, and I think it even goes back to your example with Dustin Poirier. You know, when you were training him for Khabib, it's like you gave it your all, and you were pushing yourself always to the limit. And if Dustin would have came in one day and just given it half the effort and been like, "All right, whatever, I'll see you tomorrow," he would have known. You know what I mean? It's like at that point, it's all on you, and that's something I feel like I've even learned. I know you've had 4 amateur, 4 pro fights, so you're doing way more than me. But even in my 2 fights, like that's how it is. Like you got to show up every single day because when you perform, when you go out there, it's like the culmination of everything that you've practiced. Like that should be your best self. Something interesting that I found was one of my friends. He saw me fight, and he was like, dude, that was so cool. I want to start training." And I realized so quickly, I was like, he sees me there and he thinks it's so cool, but he didn't see 6 weeks leading up to that. He didn't see like mentally when I was just absolutely drained. It's like it's those smallest parts that they don't see that people just forget about. And then when they see this like the peak of it, they're like, you know what, that's pretty cool. I like this.
Well, everybody likes the outcome, right? Everybody likes the lights and you being in front of everybody and everybody cheering for you or booing you, whatever it is. But yeah, it's that process, and people have to enjoy the process when nobody's watching. You know, I get up and I just did a half marathon recently, and I document the times that I get done with it. But like, yeah, there's times I don't want to do it. Obviously, more than I actually want to do it at times because it's something that doesn't come natural to me, right? But I think that that's the reason why you have to do it. You have to pursue it because again, you're going to stimulate some type of response that gets you stronger in some capacity. And so you're more equipped to handle the rigors of life because you're constantly pursuing the arduous task. And that's life in general, right? So the more times at bat, I would say not the easier it gets, but the more attainable it can get, right? The more, I guess you could say, palatable, right? Is a
Sure.
term I like to use. Um, and it's funny because when you go through it and you say, well, I've proven to myself that I can deal with these difficult and rough times, then anything that comes your way, you're willing to bet on yourself more and more because you've been through it and you got through it, right? So I always say, man, I always bet on myself, no matter what, no matter the situation, my back's against the wall. Here's that time where I can go, okay, another test, another task at hand, and we just got to formulate the process and formulate the plan because without the plan, you ultimately plan to fail. And that's one of those things when I look at leadership, I'm always trying to figure out and taking a step back from the chaos. You can't really identify what's going on until you have a bird's eye view of the situation. And so you have to, at times, pull yourself back, get into meditative mode, and figure out what's the best course of action for the situation. And whether I'm leading a team or coaching a fighter or an athlete, and I have to look at a broad scope of all situations because then it gives me an understanding of how I can put together a standard operating procedure and organize it appropriately so that we can execute accordingly.
Yeah, I love that. I just adore the idea, Phil, of just betting on yourself. I think that's amazing. And the only way that comes, I think, is building proof within yourself, like what I'm talking about with confidence. I heard you talking on another podcast. I can't remember quite which one, but you mentioned this idea of doing one very hard thing a year. And you're talking about your easy half marathon. You kind of just brought it up. You're like, yeah, I just did one the other day. But you talking about it helped me remember that whole idea. Could you talk about it? Because I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean that really was it's like an appetizer for the event that I want to do at the end of the year, which is going to be a marathon, and then also, I don't know if you're familiar, but I attempted a 150-mile ruck march, I should say. Didn't go my way, right? We didn't win that one, in a sense. But I knew in my heart that I pushed it to the absolute max. My physical capabilities shut down. Mentally, I was still all in. And my wife kind of got mad at me because I put myself in the hospital, right? Uh, Ended up abdo and kidney failure and all that other stuff. But, you know, I wouldn't have felt whole. I wouldn't have felt accomplished if I didn't go that route, if I didn't push to that level. And it makes you a better person, right? It makes me a better husband, better father, better leader, better coach because of that. And I don't think I would have been any better off if I didn't go that mile. Now, there's obviously a decision you have to make that is appropriate for who you are and what you do. So at that point in time, you have to be again more strategic in your long term thinking so that you can do it again. And so now we all know, again, I may have failed at that, but we won't fail again because of all the issues that went went abrupt and you could see it. We know how we can eliminate that and figure out the right course of action going forward. So yeah, pick a day or pick a time in the year that you really want to get after it, that you really want to push yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And then you want to have little obstacles throughout the process of the year so that it can equip you to deal with the rigors of what you're going to have to go through at that one point in time that you really want to push it.
Yes, yes, 100%. Phil, I love this so much. I love just the fact that like a lot of people look at you and they're like, you know, amazing trainer, five-time trainer of the year, that he's doing all these amazing things. But I think there's so much that like you yourself, exactly. The first question I asked you and you answered, you said, I like to have like show my clients that I do the thing I'm telling you. I'm not gonna tell you to do something I won't do myself. So I love it so much, dude. Your mindset's just world class. It's insane. When you're going on that rock walk, for example, right? When you're in the hardest times, how do you keep pushing forward?
I didn't negotiate with myself again. Like at the end of the day, I take full accountability for my wins, my losses, whatever, but also what goes wrong. And if my team, gets led in the wrong direction, or let's just say, we get outmatched or we're unprepared. That's my fault. That's my situation that I take full responsibility for. And so with that, I go, how can I lead my team and how can I prepare my team accordingly to get the job done? So whatever happens, again, take full accountability for yourself. Whether you're leading a team, leading yourself, it starts with you, right? And no matter what happens, no matter, wins or losses or anything of that nature, you have to really identify what is the root cause of the situation, what happened, and then formulate a process to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But again, you also want to separate fact from opinion, in understanding the truth. And before you jump to conclusions, you got to figure out what really went wrong, and you have to peel back the layers again and really understand from that process and go, all right, maybe we didn't organize accordingly. Maybe we didn't map out something that was supposed to be, taken care of, and we skip steps. You never want to skip steps. You start from you start from the end goal and you reverse engineer it. So I think what ends up happening is like same thing when you're getting ready for, let's say you're a student getting ready for an exam. If you didn't study enough, that you didn't go through the curriculum enough. You didn't put in the time. You didn't put in the effort. You didn't put in the hours because you were tired, lethargic. Maybe you were just fed up or you're just bored. But you'll know at the end when you don't pass that test. You'll know at the end when you don't succeed in that task because you skip steps or you let your emotions get the best of you.
Sure. Yeah, I love the integrity. I think even for people like if you studied the most on the test, right? We'll use your example. If you studied as much as you could and you still didn't get the grade you wanted, you would know that you did the thing. You know what I mean? It's no longer about like, oh my God, I'm upset that I got this score, but I really know I didn't study. It's like, you know what, I did everything. It is what it is. And those are the times where like you don't care as much because you know you did the thing. And I think this goes across, fighting, training for your fight, training your athletes, homework, whatever it is. It's all about having the proof. Like that's just what it is. If you know you did something, you're going to be okay with the result because you did everything you could. Going back to this idea of, betting on yourself, you train the best in the world, you've built a business, you're amazing coach, you've done so much for so many people around you. Would you say that the idea of just betting on yourself has helped you more than anything else?
I would say, yeah. I mean, without a doubt, I'm very confident just in my abilities overall. And I think that was given to me through my parents. My mother, no matter what I wanted to do, she was always like, you can do it, you know. And that comes back to me being a parent, right? So whatever my child wants to do, whatever pursue, whatever arduous task they want to pursue, I just make sure that they're equipped first and foremost. I say, okay, well, let's figure out a strategy here because I know you can do it. It's just you have to make sure you put in the effort in order for you to accomplish that task. So, yeah, I mean, through that time, and it takes time at bat. It's experience. It's very hard in the beginning because at the end of the day, you don't know, right? When your first amateur fight, you don't know what to expect, right? But you just go out there and do everything that you can. You ask questions. You get advice from other experienced fighters or coaches so that they can give you a little bit of insight on what to expect. But at the end of the day, you have to go through it. And so more times at bat gives you that opportunity to know that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to and you execute accordingly. So, but yeah, I mean, I would be lying to say that I didn't have that intuitively built in through my parents or maybe just genetically. You know, I've always had that in me. And it's sad when I see, individuals that don't have that confidence in them. And I think it does come down to who was guiding you in the beginning because they didn't guide you in the right ways or they weren't guiding you at all. They were focused on themselves or whatever the case may be. But you have to find a guide or you can become the guide, right? And so always look at, my parents, my mentors as those guys. And so now I pay it forward with the people that I lead.
100%. When it comes to your athletes, they're the best in the world. What are their mindsets like? How do they think? How do they train?
I'll tell you right now, confidence is there, right? They know they're the best in the world. They know that they can handle themselves in any situation. And I think a lot of it comes down to you can't be elite without that mindset. You can't. And the only way you develop that mindset is through constant repetition, right? Getting in there in the trenches and actually going through it and testing yourself. And you have to have small, it's like, again, go back to the exams. You have to have quizzes before you can have the major exam, right? So make sure that you have tests, make sure that you have those small exams, right? If you're getting ready for a fight, make sure that you're sparring and you're sparring with good guys and good girls that can push you, that can give you different looks that you're gonna have to see when the time really counts inside the fight, inside the competition. That's why we have practice. That's why we have scrimmages for football or basketball or whatever it is because you want to constantly look at it from a game time situation and be able to adapt to those situations. And like I said, at the end of the day, as long as you can get that experience day by day, it's just going to help you long term. And so every high level elite person we're talking about, and I've worked with celebrities, I've worked with high level people, CEOs, people that run their own businesses, and they all think the same because at the end of the day, when the time comes, when they have to lead, they know that they can pull something out of the hat. They know that they have something in them that nobody else has really, or at least around them, because that's why they're at that position that they're in. And so, yeah, I do. If you're trying to be the next level or be at the highest level that you can be at anything that you do, just make sure that you have that confidence built in. And like you said, it's through that repetition. It's through putting yourself into those positions so that you can see what you're worth.
Sure. So you mentioned you kind of broaden it up a little bit because I was talking about athletes. So I appreciate you talking about, celebrity CEOs as well. When it comes to these people, whether it's athletes, like I mentioned, celebrities, any of the people you train, do you notice commonalities within them? Because, sometimes you think that like, okay, athletes think this way, like athletes are competitive, but then, business owners are more like smart this way. But are there any commonalities between the best in the world that you see?
Hands down, work ethic, right? They're the first to come in, the last to leave, right? They work overtime because they know that it ends and starts with them. And so someone who's willing to do more all the time. And that's across the board. Work ethic, again, confidence, their ability to bet on themselves, um, being detail orientated too as well, right? Strategic, not just thinking about tactics, but having a strategic plan of action and really thinking about the details that go into um, a certain circumstance that you want to get to or a situation that you know you need to overcome. And so being analytical, being conscientious, never skipping steps, and then organizing that plan so that nothing goes astray. Just like with a fight, we have to make sure that we're covering all bases. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses is another one. Very self-aware with a lot of these guys because they know what they're good at, they know what they're great at, and they know what they suck at, at the end of the day. And so, when the time comes when we have to eliminate or at least reduce those limitations and those weak points, then we have to do that. But then there is a time when you get closer to that competition where you have to hone in on your strengths and make sure that that is unmatched. And so across the board, that's what I would say out of everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll even say for you, Phil, like I've seen videos of your training, the programs that you have, and they are so like nuanced. Like a lot of people know the basics of fitness, right? I'm not a fitness coach by any means, so don't think I know what I'm talking about. But people know just like overload your muscles, they get stronger, break them. But like the nuance that you put, I've seen your videos, like your band exercises, your med ball exercises. They really make me think. It's like there's such a deep level between the people that are like, yeah, like I know fitness, and then the people that are like, hey, you're the best. I'm gonna make you even better.
Yeah. And I think that started to come to fruition and really evolve when you start working with these guys that are the 1% of the 1%. Because yeah, I can get someone stronger that just starts out very easy, right? Progressive overload is the first start of it, right? Just put on more weight than you did the week before. But there comes a time where that stops. And now you have to look at those small, minute details from foot placement to, from force adaptations to, where you're going to elicit a neuromuscular response to a certain, aspect of your training and also putting it into the right places, right? So organizing a program through periodization or having a plan and that periodized approach will give you that edge because you're systematically putting things in place so that no matter what happens, you know how to get over it. From a mindset perspective, you also have to look at what type of personality am I trying to communicate with, right? And so I go even deeper with the assessment process when I'm evaluating the athlete itself or myself in general, and I get to really find out how I can communicate and articulate the things that I need to relay over to them so that they can understand how to um, pursue it and also how to execute everything that we do. A lot of times it comes down to reframing because what I mean by that is making sure whatever I do from a general perspective, whether it be in the gym, doing some sort of exercise, let's just say it's a squat pattern, right? And that's primarily going to be your lower body, but a particular squat pattern with a particular loading strategy, or let's say tension gradient that can correlate or transfer over into the sport itself so that they can be fully prepared to do the thing that they need to do that is specific to what they have to do inside the cage, ring, whatever. And not only do they see that it's beneficial, but they also buy into the situation. Now they put more intent to that exercise because they know that they're not just doing it to do it. They're doing it for a specific reason, for a specific adaptation, to improve their overall athleticism and to make them a better fighter or athlete or whatever.
Yes, yes. I will say from training MMA, it's crazy how little size matters when the skill is a big difference. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm not gonna beat somebody who's 200 pounds, but I'm saying like if
Yeah.
somebody who's starting out, um, you might have a better chance than you think if you're more experienced than them. And that's when I started realizing how important like sport specific training is because you have people with big muscles, right? But there's people that are just strong in their sport and they have like the muscles needed for their thing. You know what I mean? One thing I just want to say, I could not believe when I saw that you fought at 155. I could not believe that. I was like, this guy's huge. This guy's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
couldn't get down there no more. I couldn't get down there at this point anymore. Uh, funny story with that. I played football at around 210 pounds, 205 pounds, coming out of college. And I met an individual by the name of Dean Thomas, who was one of my first coaches for MMA. He's a UFC veteran. He's on ESPN. He's an analyst now. And he looked me up and down and said, listen, man, from your structure, I mean, I'm 5'8" on a good day. And he's going to have to fight at 155. And I go, I haven't been 155 pounds since middle school, man. I don't think that's going to happen. He was like, all right, trust me. And so, yeah, the process began where I had to bring down my weight, diet down, and then really make it work for me. And I got down there. It was fairly easy because of the diet and everything else, because you had a system in order. And but at the same time, if you were to say that to me, 2 years earlier, I'd be like, you're crazy. I don't even know how much I'm gonna cut off a limb doing that. But yeah, it's attainable, and and you have to look at the risk to reward, right? If it's something that is attainable without hindering performance, then go ahead and do it. If it's going to give you somewhat of an edge, either physically or psychologically, because you become, the cutting weight is it's an art. It's a science, but it's also an art, and you want to be able to still get the weight off without hindering performance, and also refuel, rehydrate fast. Right? You got 24 hours in most cases. In one of my amateur fights, I had to weigh in the same day weigh-ins, which that at that fight I was only fighting at 170, but still a big weight cut. And there's a different system and a strategy that goes with that. But as long as you understand it and you have the right people around you, you'll be all right. And yeah, I mean, with anyone that is trying to gain an edge, whether it be from the weight perspective or whether it be from a strength perspective, you still have to put in the work. You still have to make sure that you get the skills that can be, attained through constant repetition and also, again, in the trenches. So I'll never say that like the bigger guy has the advantage, because in some cases that's not the truth, right? We saw it with Poirier the last fight, right? If you guys are fight fans, he's arguably the smaller guy, but he ended up knocking out one of the bigger guys in the in the division. And so, and to say the least, he's also a very skillful guy. But I think that when skills are matched, strength, power, speed, your athleticism, your conditioning is the X factor. So we also have to take that into account.
yes, yeah. You have. I wanted to ask where your depth of knowledge comes from. Like you know so many nuances. Where is that coming from?
I would like to say it came from school, but it didn't. No, continuing education, just constantly getting into books, reading the research, being in the trenches, having a large pool of, that I can use, including myself, right? Including myself. My knowledge of the sport, my knowledge of strength and conditioning and performance training came from wanting to be the best and wanting to give the best to my athletes. And so every day. And I used to when I trained and coached down at American Top Team, I had about an hour and a half drive every day, there and back. And throughout that time, it was I called it, it was like Highway University, at the end. So it was audiobooks, it was podcasts, and then when I had downtime, it was reading certain, studies and research, and I still have books by me right now, and not to say and even then, it's always going back and reading the literature and going back and reading the books over and over again. I'd rather read one page in one book 100 times than read 100 pages one time, because I want to really understand the information, So yeah, it's just repetition, and then also being hungry for knowledge. Now I'm more getting more towards the holistic side of training, the holistic side, or I guess you would say, the mental side of how we work as individuals, not just as athletes, but on a day-to-day process. How do people think, and why do they think these ways? Right, from personality trait to their ability to understand, and also what type of intelligence do they have? Right, some are very kinesthetic and intelligent, where they can see a movement and do it right away, and I think that that's a true sign of an athlete. Some people have more of an understanding of emotionality, or people, right? They have more emotional intelligence, and I think you need to have a little bit of everything, from a competence standpoint, to just be a better person overall. But you should have a very high skill set or talent level on one particular aspect, right? So I always want to be able to hold a conversation in any room. But when they ask me about performance training, well, then there's my time to shine. You know what I'm saying? So that's it.
I love it. Last question for you, Phil, and then I'm gonna let you get going. But what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want people to remember you?
I get this question a lot. I just want to be known for a person that never gave up, that was always there to give out information and help people. And truly, at the end of the day, my purpose is, one, to know and love God, and two, be able to help as many people as possible through the gifts and the talent that God has given me. And however I can do that, whether that be get you ready for a fight, whether that be get you ready to hold down a leadership role or a business opportunity, or getting through school, whatever it is, I want to be that guide for those individuals. I don't need to be the hero. Don't want to be the hero, but I'd much rather be the guide. Think about it like Star Wars. I want to be like Yoda, right? I'll be Yoda over anything else.
Everyone loves Yoda. Everyone loves Yoda.
That's it, man.
Phil, where can people find you at?
All the social media platforms, Instagram, Daru Strong. My X or Twitter is Daru Strong. YouTube, I put a lot of content on there. Phil at Daru Strong. And then my website, darustrong.com. That's where you can find me.